What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another week here on the Finding Direction podcast. This week, I'm chatting with my man, Bobby Hobert, a.k.a. Bobby, a.k.a. The Bearded Man. And a little bit about Bobby. He is a fellow podcaster. He's got a podcast called The Bearded Man, also why he's known as The Bearded Man. He also is the podcast performance manager of Liquid IV. He is a former 19,000 drive Uber driver. We'll get into that more on the show. And in this episode, my friends, there was so much wisdom. I am beyond excited for you to dive into this episode. We talk about the importance of finding peace within yourself, something that'll massively change your life. We also talk about what do you do when your life plan, very simply said, goes to shit. When you have an idea of what you want to do and things change entirely, how do you navigate from that place? And we also talk about the power and the importance of when you are looking for a change in your life, the importance of seeking help from others. All right, there is so much value in this episode, my friends. I promise you're going to get golden nugget left, right, and the other. So much wisdom in this episode. I am beyond pumped for you to check it out. If you have not yet, please make sure, as always, go to the iTunes store, leave us a rating, leave us a review. Spotify now actually allows you to leave ratings as well. So if you could go to Spotify, if that's where you listen, give us a rating, 1 to 5 stars based on how much you like the show. And we would be extremely, extremely grateful for your support. This helps us get the show out to more people, make more of an impact, and truly help more people do less draining work and do work that's really more fulfilling in their life. So we're going to dive right into this episode, my friends. And without further ado, here we go. Bobby Hobert, a.k.a. Bobby, welcome to the show, my man. I'm pumped to have you here.
Honored to be here, baby. We cooking up some heat today or what?
Absolutely. Cooking up a lot in the kitchen. So fill me in, man. I'm curious, and I would love for the audience to hear, and I would love to learn for myself as well. You know, what was life sort of like for little Bobby growing up?
A lot different than what... Actually, I would say a lot different, but I don't know if it's a lot different. I mean, it was different. I grew up in Chicopee, Massachusetts, hour and a half west of Boston. Growing up, I was raised by 2 incredible parents. I have a sister that's 2 years younger than me. Nice. Looking back on it, it wasn't until you grow up and you have some time to reflect on it, but I couldn't have been raised in a better environment where I had, 2 loving and supportive parents that essentially provided myself and my sister the basic needs: roof over our head, food on the table, new pair of shoes when school year would come around. But anything else, like, we had to do it. We had to find a way to make money and buy it, right? So they were very supportive. If I wanted to try a new sport or if I wanted to try playing guitar, they were there and they would encourage us. But at the same time, very early on, where I would have to learn to find ways to make my own money if I wanted to buy certain things. So looking back, I mean, there's so much to unpack there. Like, I think a lot of my childhood was playing sports. Now looking back, solely because it was about the community. I didn't really fully love basketball. I didn't fully love soccer. I didn't fully love baseball, but I did it because the homies were doing it and I loved being around people. I ended up being the morning announcement guy at my senior year of high school. Didn't know I was going to get into podcasting. At that moment in time, if you had asked me, are you going to be a radio style, podcasting wasn't even existing, are you going to be a personality? I would have been like, I have no idea what you're talking about. This was just a easy, going to look good for the college resume. And it was a great childhood, though. I grew up in a city that was about 55,000, had your lower, middle, and higher class, quote unquote. I went to a high school with all different types of people: whites, blacks, Spanish, Ukrainian, Russian, just a mixed bag of people, which, oh man, that was like such an important learning until I didn't realize until I went to college and I was around kids that just went to high schools with 1,000 of them. Like just, whatever demographic they were, they was just all of, just 1,000 of them. And I went to high school with all different types of people. So, all that to say, I got very lucky with where I was raised. So much gratitude for Chicopee, Mass. Can't say I'll ever live there again, but a lot of the learnings I'll take with me for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Do you remember what the first thing you did to make money was, like as a little kid?
No questions asked. Let's see. I'll never forget this day. It was probably March. I was 12 years old. And I told my mom, it was like kind of a foggy day in Massachusetts, that I want to start making money. It was a Saturday. I was bored. And she's like, do you want me to call your uncle? My uncle owned a garden center, and sold, shrubs and plants and bags of mulch. And she said, do you want me to call your uncle and see if he needs some extra help? Because in the springtime, it gets really busy. So sure enough, she called. He needed help. She dropped me off that day. And I started working, and I learned a lot of lessons working for him. And for sure it was illegal because I was too young, but I think because he was an uncle,
it was okay.
It was totally fine. So yeah, that was the first job I ever had. And not to dive into it deep, but it was a really surreal moment when I graduated college. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I was like thinking about starting a podcast, and I was home for a couple of weeks, and I was back to working that same job. And I'll never forget that moment where I'm watering plants, and I was like, this is the first job I ever had. I now have a college degree in my back pocket from a top business school in Boston, and I'm now here again. It was no disrespect to my uncle, no disrespect to anybody. Right. It was just like, what did I do wrong? So that was a really surreal moment, a full circle moment.
Yeah.
But that
was like, the first this is not the way that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. It was gnarly, but that was the first way I made money. It was really good work ethic lessons really early on.
Yeah. I had a similar experience where my parents, I also grew up in a super fortunate family. Parents provided for us, but it was like, if we wanted something, the deal they cut with us is they were like, we'll pay for half and you pay for half.
It's great.
So it was like, you know what I mean? We had to find a way. And so I started this thing. It was called Stu's Service. And I went out to every neighbor in my neighborhood, passed out flyers, and was like, I'll watch your dog. I'll watch your house if you leave. I'll water your plants if you need them. I'll mow your lawn, wash your car. And it was like, until I left for college, I was like the kid in the neighborhood where if you needed anything done, you would call me. And it was like, served me for years that it brought in money. It was wild.
Wow. Young entrepreneur, you freaking Stu Services, offering anything and everything that people needed.
It's even got like the ring. It was a good time. So So let's say then we jump back into your story. So you're going to school, kind of having this cool little life. You're working for your uncle for a bit. And to kind of skip forward a little bit, I'm curious, when you went into college, did you have an idea of, I mean, obviously you went to a business school. So was the goal, I'm going to graduate, have a business, or I don't really know what the heck I'm going to do? Business school just sounds kind of sick, or like, what was the plan?
That was the plan, right? It was like, I didn't see myself necessarily starting a business. I love the idea of entrepreneurship, and it seemed badass. And also seeing what my uncle had built, I was like, this, potentially could be a really cool thing to build something someday. But really, if you had asked me my freshman year of college, Bobby, what's the dream job? What do you want to do when you graduate college? It was get a really badass corporate job, drive a BMW, wear a cool ass suit, have a Rolex, and climb the ladder. And that was so much what I thought was like going to be happiness, right? If I could, if I could purchase all these things, I would be happy. And that's why I pushed myself to go to a top business school, because I knew I could leverage that to get into top companies.
Open a lot of doors.
So I originally didn't even get into that school. It was a school called Bentley University right outside of Boston. Didn't even get in as a freshman. So I went to a different school called LaSalle University for a year, crushed it, then transferred into Bentley. And it was there during my junior year at an internship for a local marketing startup. They got a taste of what corporate America was going to feel like. And I was like, this is absolutely not made for me. And so I had to start kind of reverse engineering. I had to start recalculating, where am I going after college? Thank God I wasn't graduating that spring.
Right.
But I was like, all right, I got about a year and some change to start figuring out what I want to do. But that was the reason I pushed myself to go to a top school, was like, I want to, work in the corporate space. And hey, if that's for you, there's nothing wrong with it. But I just knew that it wasn't the right fit for me.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, like when you have an idea of what something's going to be right in your head, it's business suit, BMW, Rolex, like all looks good. But then when you like actually go in that picture, like in a day in the office, two different worlds.
Yeah. It's the process.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think too many times in life, we go through wondering, what's this going to be like? Is that I think I'm going to like that? And we're all in our head. And someone once said it to me beautifully, and I think it's so true. They're like, until you actually try something, at best, it's a guess.
At best, it's a guess. Yeah, that's really good. Jim Carrey said something along the lines of that, where he's like, I wish you all could get everything you've ever imagined in life, because there's more to life than just that. And I butchered it, but it's something along that lines of like, we have this picture in our minds of what is happiness. And we always are moving the goalpost, right? We get finally get to what we think is happiness. And by the next day, we're now looking further beyond to what else is the next thing. And so the reason I made the comment about the process is it took me a long time to really, Gary Vee was pounding this in my head, 2016, 2017, 2018. I kept trusting him and trust the process, right? But it wasn't even until really like the last 12, 24 months where I like, I get what he's saying. He's saying to like, find joy in the day to day, the small wins, the mundane, the things that feel like it's not moving the needle, the brick by brick, the 1%, like all these little daily tasks that we so often just like, it's just another workout. It's just another podcast. It's just another email. How can you flip it into like, I'm so grateful to be on this podcast. I'm so grateful I got to run this morning. I'm so grateful that I have like a vision for my life. So yeah, I don't think people have to learn it from themselves, but things and destinations and goals aren't going to be the thing that brings us happiness. It's going to be, good ways to measure our success in the direction we're going. But I personally believe we can't expect that once we get to these destinations, we're going to be just blissfully happy and good for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. And it's like, the reality is when you get there, who's the person that then decides you get to be happy or blissful or X, Y, Z? It's like, you're that person.
Yeah. Pressure's on you.
Yeah. So rather than waiting to say, I'm going to do this one day to be happy, it's like, well, why not be happy now and then do it?
Yeah. Easier said than done. Right?
Easier said than done.
I think it's a lot of inner work. It's a lot of inner work of like, can you find happiness in stillness? I almost posted this last night. Now I'm regretting that I didn't post it because now we're talking about it. But like last night I was about to throw on Netflix by myself and I was at peace, right? Like I was at peace that I was by myself alone, going to relax, watch this and go to sleep. When there's times in our mind, it could be like, I should be out with friends. I should be at a dinner. I should be with a significant other, or I should be looking for that significant other. But I was at peace of knowing like I gave the day my best. Everything's, a work in progress. I have some time to myself to just watch this and go to sleep and get ready for the next day. And I definitely wasn't in that mindset years ago, but it's been a lot of inner work of stillness and solitude and going in on myself and asking myself all these questions and figuring out who I am and where I want to go, that it's allowed me to be comfortable in my own skin alone. For someone who's very extrovert, it's really, it's gnarly to say that out loud because I thrive off of people. I thrive off of things like this, talking to people. But at the same time, if I don't take the time to have that stillness and be alone and in my own thoughts, I'm going to not be able to show up at my highest level because I'm constantly just draining my energy battery. Moments like that, it allows me to recharge and then, get prepared for the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something about, like, as I hear you describe the piece, I fortunately can relate to it, where it's like those moments where you're like, wow, I'm just like at peace with my life, with where I am, the place I'm at. And like, I have goals and like, I want to do more in my life, but I'm like genuinely in a really peaceful place and like enjoying this process. And I think it's such a powerful thing for people to go to. And I think one of the things that you said about goals that I've always learned and approached is we set goals not to achieve them, but for who we become in the process.
Wow.
Right? It's like when you achieve something, like there's this cliche saying I learned from this guy, Jim Rohn. If you ever heard of Jim Rohn?
Yeah, he's great.
The GOAT, right? And he says, in order for things to change, you have to change. If you want things to be better, you got to be better. If you want things to be different, you got to become different. Like all these different ways that he says it, but it's I've said this for years in my head, and then I've had significant moments in my life where I go, holy crap, my life's different because like I am a different human. And when you feel that sense of like, I'm different and your life's different, it's this weird thing. And it's this sense that you set this goal, you pushed yourself, you got uncomfortable, you tried new things, you grew, and now you truly are in a different space of your life.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's to make an actual change in your life, it's the ability to stay consistent over a period of time. I just got into this past weekend. I just completed my second marathon, and I think marathon running, thank you, is such a metaphor for life, man. Because when the pandemic hit, I couldn't run. I just started running a mile a day, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 8. So even at that scale, it's like allowed me to like see and understand like this is just one little metaphor for what life is. When you decide this needs to change in my life, great. That's the hardest first step, is to acknowledge it. And then it's that ability to remind yourself every single day, which is then, like you're saying, you are then changing. If you want something to change in your life, you need to change first, which then ripples, to everything else. And Jim Rohn once said, and this quote has been told by many different people, but you're the sum of you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that's an incredible, so real. Your environment sets the bar for who you become. And that can change the direction of your life tremendously overnight.
Massively. Yeah. I'm curious, how do you think someone goes from external to internal, right? Like you said, you've done the deep work, you've looked at yourself, you've had the conversations, you've done those things that's created this sense of peace and like enjoyment in your life and enjoying the process. But one thing I always share with people, I think it's so true, is like when we want to figure out what we want to do with our life, it's an internal game. It's not an external game. It's not, Bobby's doing this or Christina's doing that, so, I got to go do that. It's no, let me stop looking external and go internal and say, what the hell, what does Stu want in this life? You know what I mean? And how do you think someone goes from externally trying to figure out what they want to do their life to internally kind of like learning about themselves in these deep ways?
I can only speak from my experience, right? So
totally.
The first podcast I hosted was called Purpose in the Youth and was focused on unfolding the stories of passionate people. I was using external people to learn because I didn't know internally what I wanted to do. So I was interviewing anybody with a passion, artists, DJs, photographers, entrepreneurs. I just wanted to soak and listen to them and just absorb their passion, their energy, their why for what they did, how they got there. And so after a period of time, it just started to make sense where I was like, okay, I'm starting to figure out who I am. I like having a voice in this world. I like sharing my thoughts. I like talking to people. I like asking questions. Like it just so happened that that's why I evolved in, and that's who I am and what I want to continue to become is a personality, a person that shares his own experiences on, publicly on a platform. And that's the key is, you wake up one day and you're like, I'm not happy with where I'm at, or I need a change in my life. Once again, it's great. The acknowledgement, the awareness is really important.
Yeah.
I don't think you're necessarily maybe right away going to know how to internally navigate that, right? Like my advice would be get out a piece of paper and pen, write down your strengths, your weaknesses. What do you enjoy doing? Like map out your life and then try to see like, what's the common theme? How can we take what I'm really good at, what I love to do, and make that a living? That's what you kind of have to do. Yeah. And it takes time. And so what I would suggest is like, look up people that you're inspired by, whatever industry they're in, especially in the podcast space. If you're listening right now, you're somebody that already is very aware of podcasts, which is huge. Yeah. Go find interviews of people that you're inspired by. It doesn't have to be who you want to become, but who you're inspired by, and listen and learn how they figured things out, how they navigated these different moments in their lives, and you will start to pull common themes. So that's what I did, right? Externally, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Internally, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Right. But I went external. I started learning, started listening, and just absorbing all of these people that were seeing success, were passionate, were happy. And then I started internally taking note of what was working for them, what wasn't, and starting to incorporate these mindsets, these mantras, these decisions, these practices into my own life, which then allowed me to really figure it all out. So it's not an easy process. It's not supposed to happen overnight, but people like ourselves, we're not where we necessarily envision. Like where we want to be, right? I'm sure you have huge aspirations for where you want to go. I have huge aspirations for where I want to go, but we've done enough work to get us at least moving in that direction. So sometimes you got to look external at the people around you or the people that you're inspired by and use lessons from them and implement them into the internal.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way you paint it. It's like, look at a lot of different things, listen to a lot of different things, and then ask yourself, okay, what resonates, what aligns, what can I use from that gathered information to take my next step, right? And so, so if we jump back into your life then, so you're junior, go do this internship, you go from, in my life in 2 years, I'm being this sick suit, got my Rolex, and all of a sudden your brain goes from this like clear vision of what you want to do to scrambled eggs, right? You're like, holy shit, this is not what I want to do. And let's say we fast forward, a year and a half, 2 years, right? You graduate. And from my perception, it seems that when you graduated, you were still in this scramble. And that's what led to the podcast, right? And I'm curious, when you graduated, why did you say, when the world essentially is going, no, Bobby, you're supposed to get a job, you're supposed to follow this path. Why did you say, I'm going to not get a job and scramble through figuring this out rather than just trying to like stick myself in a hole to fit in?
It's a good question. I would argue even my egg was you cracked the shell and there was nothing inside because it just didn't make any sense.
Damn.
Once again, going all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, very fortunate that one of the things that my parents had told me from a very young age was, no matter what it is you want to do with your life, as long as you love it, we'll support you. And that was crucial. And that gave me the confidence when I was graduating to say, I'm not getting a job. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I need to figure this out. And I told them that, and they said, great, we support you. But know that when your college loans kick in 6 months, we're not paying for it. You got to figure that out. I said, not a problem. As long as I have two of the most important figures in my life and my sister supporting me on this decision to not get a job, I'm going to be Gucci. Everyone around me that I was graduating with was lost for words. Like, you're not getting a job. A couple months later, I made it public that I was now driving Uber full time. People were like, you went to a top business school. Now you're driving Uber. Now you're launching a podcast. What is a podcast? You're trying to be a personality. It was like this huge, this big question mark. But to me, I was listening to podcasts going into my spring semester, senior year. Business school taught me one thing. If you survey a market and you see something's lacking, create it. And I saw that there was a missing market of young, passionate people. I was listening to The School Greatness by Lewis Howes. I was listening to all these like huge self-development podcasts, but all the guests were like, average age was 30 up. And I was 22 at the time. And like 8 years isn't a big difference, but I was like, I'm looking for somebody who's running a show of like young 20-year-olds. So you mix in not knowing what I want to do with my life, listening to podcasts, being self-aware enough to go, I like talking, I like people, I'm curious. 3 important aspects of podcasting. All this business lesson of like, if you survey market, it's not there, you should do it. I just internally had this feeling, and I've never felt so clear about what I need to do up until that moment in my life. It was gnarly. Stu, when I'm thinking back on it, I've never felt more confident about this was what I needed to do than that moment. And
interesting.
I had the right environment around me, not from college, but from like the kids that I grew up with. Couple of like the oddballs that were like making music and shooting photography and modeling. And I just had all the right pieces to the puzzle around me that I was like, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
I have the resources around me. I just got to follow it. And I launched that first show August 31st, 2016, hit the ground running. And with a short 9-month break 2 years ago from podcasting, I haven't stopped.
Epic.
Yeah.
Love it, man.
There's a lot to unpack there, but that, at least that's the context of like going to a top business school and just like not knowing it wasn't meant for me and not caving. Cause I knew internally, I was like, if I just get a job, I'm going to get into this rhythm of a lifestyle of making money. And then, my lifestyle is going to elevate. I'm going to buy a new car and then I'm going to have a higher rent. And now I'm going to be in a place where I'm not going to be able to make the leap. I was like, if I just avoid getting comfortable, I'm going to have to find a way.
Respect.
And I found a way. Yeah.
Respect. And I love one thing too. It's like you graduated and it was, I don't know what I want to do, but it was, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm going to do something. Yes. And I think, sometimes we try to figure out our life and we're like, well, I don't know what I want to do. And because that's the record that plays in our head, that dictates our focus. That dictates what we do with our life. But if we go, I don't know what I want to do, but like, what's something I can do? That inevitably is going to lead to a better place. And that's kind of what you did, is you're like, I don't quite know what it is, but I'm going to take these steps. And I mean, 6 years later, you're still running this and crushing it in the game now. And so love it, man. So
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
So one thing I'm curious to hear from you, if you could share with us, I believe it was 2019, 2020, after 1,900 Uber rides.
19,000. 19,002.
19,000.
Yeah, 19,002.
19,000. Top 2% Uber driver.
Amen, brother.
And all of a sudden, I got you. And all of a sudden, you're like, you know what? I'm going to declare to the world through my social media that I'm ready for a change in my life. And I'm curious if you could walk us through kind of like the post that you put, and then more importantly, like why it's important sometimes, if we don't have it figured out, to just like share that, because it can lead to some incredible things. And so if you could share with us, like what was that post and kind of how did it change the game?
So you're striking some emotion chords right now, man, because I would have found a way to pivot, but that post showed so much to me about the power of social media. For context, like up until this moment, I pretty much was just documenting like podcaster by day, Uber driver by night. I was showing people me literally running a podcast out of my bedroom, and then 4 hours later, like driving Uber and like telling the stories in between rides, or like eating lunch on the side of the fucking road. Like I didn't hold back in showing the full and honest truth. And there got to a point at the end of 2019, I'm kind of getting burnt out with purpose in the youth. I'm not seeing like huge growth, and I'm getting frustrated because it's not like a career yet. I'm starting to just like feel like I've done everything I can with Uber, and I'm not like, I need to find something else. There was a really good conversation I had with somebody named Zach Conovar. He used to manage Yes Theory. And that was like advice he had given me, was two things. One, first thing you need to do is you need to stop driving Uber. You need to find a way to make money where you're learning skills, right? Second thing, once you get past that, maybe consider rebranding the podcast or trying something different, but like there's got to be another way to get more eyeballs and earballs. So I have this all in mind. I go home for like a week, just so happened I was going home. I get back, first night driving Uber back in LA. So I've been out the game for 10 days, feel refreshed. Yeah. I drive, do my thing. I get back at night, and it was early October of 2019. I pull up my phone like I always would at the end of the night and just say like, crushed 10 hours on the road, great day, whatever it was. But I got back and I told the world, essentially the people that were following me, I said, hold me to it. By the top of 2020, in 2 months from now, I'm done driving Uber. I'm going to find something else. I've given this thing my all, but I know I can be of value to something bigger.
Yeah.
And one of the many great people that I interviewed through podcasting, his name was Brandon Cohen, He's the founder of a company called Liquid IV. I had interviewed him about a year prior to that, August of 2018. And I wake up, that was at night, 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I wake up to a DM from him, not responding to the Instagram story, just a direct DM, and said, yo, can you hop on a call today? And I go back and I look at who viewed the story, and I saw he viewed it. And I was like, okay, he didn't respond directly to the story, but like, I have a good relationship with Brandon. Like I'd see him out and about. I had just seen him like 2 months ago at an event. You know, we're friends, but we're not like homies. So I was like, he's not just hitting me up. Like he's a busy dude. He's got a lot of shit on his plate. He's not just hitting me up. So I knew internally he saw my story and there's something. Right. I'm not sure if he's offering to me, but like he saw my story. There's something reason to hit me up. So
Something
I
good's
DM him.
about to happen.
Fuck, man. So I hit him back. I'm like, dude, you just tell me the time and I'll be on the phone today. He tells me whatever time, call. And he's just like, yo, man, well, it's kind of crazy timing. He had just gotten back from flying out to be on Gary Vee's podcast. So I said, hey, we get on the call. I said, before we even talk about whatever you want to talk about, I said, how was New York? Like, you're with Gary Vee, blah, blah, blah. So he goes on to tell me about being there. And he's like, being with Gary Vee, it made me thinking of like what I need to build for my team. And like, we're not doing enough content. And so he's like talking about it. And I'm like, holy shit, he's about to like send me the lob of a century. And he just goes on to say, like, I need to start building out content around us and like my story, and it'll help build awareness of the brand, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, we're hiring a director level position and I think you're like a perfect fit. And I was just like, done. I was like, he didn't even tell me salary. He didn't tell me benefits. I said, yo, I'm in. I said, Brandon, put me in touch with whoever I got to put in touch with, whatever I'm in. Yes. Like, there's no question. I don't even know what I'm getting paid. I don't know my vacation time. I just know this is what I need. And so 2 weeks later, I was working full time for the company, and it's crazy just thinking about it out loud. But man, there's something to be said about telling the world what you want. It's not every day like, I'm done driving Uber. It's just like at some point you need to let people know. You need to let people know what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, so that you never know who could help do this, do that. And so I think that was the biggest lesson for me, is like, there are people watching you, and do not take it for granted, but also share what you're trying to do. And got me this incredible opportunity with Liquid IV. I'm still with them 2 years and 3 months later. And it's, man, it just changed my life completely.
That's cool. I had goosebumps through that whole story.
Yeah, it's gnarly, man.
It's interesting too. Like, I think sometimes what happens for us when we want change is we go through like a threshold of pain, right? Where we go through some point where we go, no more, no longer. I'm not doing this. I can't do this another day. And we take some crazy action. Like, I'm going to post to the world and tell them I need help figuring out the next part of my life. And I think for anybody that's listening to this, one, if you're in that place, do something simple like post on social media. Like, with the power of social, you could have 10 people following you, and one person sends it to another person that has 100 people to follow them, and they send it to someone that has 10, and it's all of a sudden like doors open, right? And I think for anybody that's listening to this that isn't at that threshold of pain, take this as a sign to not wait.
Yeah.
Like, if you've had a whisper or something in your stomach that's like, this isn't it, this isn't the thing I'm supposed to be doing. Like, if you're listening to us right now, take this as a sign to say, like, I'm not going to wait till that day 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years later when it's enough. I'm going to do something today and see where it goes, right?
Yeah.
Because even one of the cool parts is like, you could have posted that. Nobody could have hit you up. You could have posted it. Someone could have hit you up with an opportunity. You could have said no. You never know what could have happened. But by not posting it, you are guaranteeing that nothing in your life is going to change.
Yeah. And that's that was the intention too. It wasn't post because somebody's going to see it and offer me an opportunity. It was more about post to have people hold me accountable to, like, you say you want to change, so find a way to make it happen. But I also knew too that I want people to understand that I'm happy with where I'm at, but I know that I need to evolve. And so that was the thought process. Like, I want people to hold me accountable to making this change in 2 months, but I also want it to be in the back of people's minds so that, a couple of weeks later, they hear of an opportunity like, yo, Bearded Man, I heard about this. You should check it out. Great. Now, instead of me looking out for myself as one, I had the 300 people that saw the story all in their mind going, Bearded Man's looking for something different. All right. It's in their subconscious, and maybe hopefully someday that it pops up, it would have popped up in their mind. But lucky for me, I got that. It happened that night. And that's the other thing. Don't get discouraged if you go post something today and nobody hits you up. That's fine. You're putting out there to the world, and somehow, some way, it will work to your benefit.
100%. Well, Bobby, my man, it's been an absolute honor to have you here, man. Such a cool story. I'm sure we could be here for another long, long time. But I'm curious, if people want to see what you're up to, what you're doing, where they can find more about you. I know you got a lot going on. So where's the best place to point people?
I think if you just Google Bobby, that's B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y, you'll find me Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, at Bobby, and the podcast is It's the Bearded Man. So I think if you just Google one of those, you'll be able to find all my content.
I love it. Three B's, 4 A's.
4 A's and a Y. Yeah. Instagram didn't. I wanted just BOBBAY Instagram and had it taken. So now it just evolved into it kind of flows good. BO, 3 B's, 4 A's and a Y. It kind of flows somewhat. Yeah. People are like, bro, you got too many letters in your name. I'm like, well, now you know when you see me liking and commenting on your photos, you're gonna see the whole name. So at least it stands out from the crowd a little bit.
Love it. Well, so the last question I have for you, I guess, question we ask every guest, because we want to help people find direction in their life, but we really do believe in doing it through action, right? Not just sitting, wishing, wondering, but like you got to take some action, just like you have in your own life. And so I'm curious, like, what would you say is one thing someone listening to this can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start finding direction in their life?
So good. It's exactly what I was talking about earlier. It's getting really still, put your phone on do not disturb, shut your laptop, turn off the TV, get out a piece of paper, or maybe use, the notes app on your phone or on your laptop, and seriously just write out and be completely honest with yourself about what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and what do you like to do? Okay. The strengths, you're going to enjoy writing because you're like, I'm a people's person. I have a great beard. I love to talk, right? That's me, right? Yeah. But my weaknesses are sometimes I overlook the smallest details, and I'm not the greatest big picture thinker, whatever the weakness are. Be real with yourself about what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then look at what is it that you like to do. There is a way to combine your strengths with what you like to do. There is a way in this world now with how digital everything is to find a way making a living doing it. So if you have no direction, if you have no idea what you're doing with your life, honestly, be compassionate to yourself and know that just being aware of that is unbelievably so important. And know that even though you've probably tried multiple things and it's not working, which is making you feel like you're wasting your time and energy, not knowing what you want to do is just as important as knowing what you want to do. When you don't know what you want to do, you now have a list of things that doesn't work for you. When I knew I didn't want to work in the corporate and for this marketing company, that was in the do not want to do list. And then once I found the thing that I like to do, which is podcasting, creating, sharing content, boom, that's what I like to do. So you're going to have to go through this trial and error of finding things you don't like to do to then find what you like to do. It's going to be worth it. You're going to feel like you're actually making steps behind when you're not finding the right thing, but you're actually making steps forward. And then secondly, take that time to write down your strengths, your weaknesses, and what is it that you really like to do. The last thing I will say, a really great question to ask yourself. Yeah. If money was never an issue for the rest of your life, how would you spend your time? That's the thing that you want to do. And don't give me the, I would travel the world. Okay, I would too. So would everyone else. You want to get perspective, travel. I get it. That's going to, you'll do that for a couple of years and then you're going to need something that's fulfilling.
Right. What
would you want to spend your day to day? I know for a fact, very grateful that I can say this, that if you call me a check tomorrow for $1 billion, I am still going to be creating. Everything's just going to be elevated, going to have a team, going to, do it at a bigger scale, but I'm still going to be doing this thing. So find what that thing is for you. Forget about how much money you're making. Forget about what the salaries are out there. What is the thing that you would spend the rest of your life doing if money was never an issue? Find that thing, double the fuck down, and the money will come.
Let's go. All right, Bobby. Baby. Well, that's a wrap. Lot of heat in the kitchen today. So thank you for being here, man. Massively appreciate all the value, and looking forward to having more conversations.
Dude, honor. Can I ask a favor from the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely.
Listeners, if you enjoyed this podcast, you need to do this man a favor. If you're listening on the iTunes podcast app, leave him a review. Reviews and ratings on podcasts are unbelievably helpful in building the growth of the show. And it takes a lot of work behind the scenes to run a show like he's running right now. So do Stu a favor. If you're on iTunes, go leave him a review on the iTunes podcast app. If you're listening on Spotify, you can now rate podcasts on a 1 to 5 stars, give them 5 stars. but take a moment today and give them one word, give them one sentence of how this podcast is helping you, because it makes all the difference. So please do so today.
Love it, man. Massively, massively grateful for that. Grateful for everybody that leaves a review as well. And other than that, everybody have a phenomenal rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.
Let's get it.